This is the Carnegie Caulfield B grade criterium. This is about halfway through the race, about a half an hour into it. The bunch is all together, and there's a group of 4 riders sort of breaking away off the front. You can just see them in the distance up the front there, and I've decided, well, I might as well go across to it. And the reason for that is the strongest team in that group, there was a group of 4 or 5 riders. They're the Inform Racing team. And I sort of figured that anyone they have in the break, the rest of the guys will sort of slow down the bunch or won't contribute to turning chases. So I figured that I may as well be in every break that one of those members are in. And we've got one of the Inform guys in the break up in front. So I've gone across. And I'm not exactly a time trial specialist, so this was a bit of a tough effort for me here. 48 to 50 k's an hour into a very slight headwind, sitting on about 350 to 400 watts. And I was mindful of the fact that I don't want to go into 500-600 watts here just to get across to these guys. I wanted to keep it down to about 350, 400 just so that I could actually get across, because so many times I've tried to get across to breaks and have been unsuccessful because I've basically lactic build up in the legs and I've blown and gone back to the bunch. So I've bridged the gap across to these guys, and usually the etiquette is that if you make it across to the break, it's quite acceptable for you to sit on for a little while, just until you get your heart rate back down. So you can see this guy has made it across too. He's actually he turned out to be a very strong bike rider in the break. This Hamden Cycles guy, I don't know his name. He's only a young fella, 15, 16, something like that. But he is going to be such a good bike rider. He's so strong for his age. He was doing so well here. So, and you can see I just called the guys in again, just to sit on, just to get the heart rate down a little bit, just so I can be of use to the break. So there's 5 of us in the break here, and the secret, in my opinion, to staying away is to not pull too hard of turns, but to work well together. So roll turns at a certain percentage of your threshold, but not driving it, not absolutely tearing the other guy's legs off, because if you get everyone's heart rate above their lactic threshold, the break won't be successful. So I think it's important to roll turns, but just not too hard. So we're working well together so far. Everyone's sort of starting to roll a turn. And the bicycle superstore guy, the guy in the yellow and the black there, comes to the front, very strong rider, and just drives it out of that corner. And you can see all of us are yelling at him to take it easy, to slow down, because what he does then is if you have one guy in the break who absolutely drives it, they split the rest of the bunch up. You can see there's one guy out the arse, and he's just getting back on now. So I'm just telling the guy, look, steady turns, everyone roll, just steady turns, keep the pace high but keep it consistent, and that way we all keep our heart rate relatively consistent. If you have people surging, it can really play havoc on the success of the bunch. So my FTP, my functional threshold power, is around the 300 mark. So you can see I'm pushing up this hill 400 and over 400 watts. So this is hurting me a little bit, and I'm thinking here that there's no way I can actually maintain this. Well, not long term anyway. I mean, we're still 20 minutes from the end of the bike race. And you can see here the guy, he's just hit his absolute max rolling turns with us, and he's just decided to sit up. And that's, I've got to be honest with you, that's exactly how I felt. I was absolutely in the herd house through here, and it turns out a lap later I actually did sit up. I I got around one more lap, and I think we surged a little bit, and it just hurt me too much, and I sat up. Fortunately, there was a group of 9 riders that broke away from the main bunch, and they're currently not far behind us now, and they caught me, picked me up, and then picked all these guys up. So it turned out to be quite a fortunate, fortunate mistake. So you can see here, I've sat up. A bunch of 9 guys have caught me, 9 or 10 blokes, and we're just tearing along here. You can see the main bunch is just in the distance there, out the back. And I noticed that they're not far behind us, but I also noticed that we're quite capable of staying away. So I started yelling out to the guys, look, let's get organised. And I think the reason I'm reiterating this is, if you get in the breakaway, it's really important to communicate with the rest of the guys in the break. Like, you have to talk. There's no point just rolling around and people are doing a crazy shit and no one's talking to anyone. You have to communicate with each other and get organised. And so I spent the next few laps with these guys just saying, look, let's settle down a bit, start rolling turns, let's get organised, easy turns, steady pace, and they ended up being a successful break. But you can see here, these 9 riders have gone away from the main bunch, but you can see here there's a little bit of panic. There's a few guys that are sort of in the distance. If we can see, I think I pull over to the right up here, and you can see that there's 3 guys that have gone off the front of this bunch, and so they're driving it to stay away from the main bunch. And you can see in the distance there's a few guys off the front. And a break like this will be more successful if everybody's working. If you get 6 or 7 blokes working and then 4 blokes sitting on, then the break is too big, so you need to attack. I'm just telling these guys that we need to work together. So I was saying, if you've got a break of 10 or so people and 4 or 5 people are sitting on the back, just trying to get the breath back or cruising, the chances are that break isn't going to be very successful, because what happens is the guys that are working get a little bit resentful. They won't appreciate people sitting on, and there's no point working for a bunch of bows sitting on your ass. So the break will be unsuccessful. But in this case, we got everyone working. There wasn't one slacker in this bunch, and it was really, really good to see. I'm just exchanging some words here with the guy at the bicycle superstore guy, because they're all trying to tell me that there's one guy up the road, 1 or 2 guys up the road, and I just didn't believe. I didn't know that there was actually anyone up the road. So we've got about 30 seconds, 45 seconds here on the main bunch, and there's a couple of stragglers a little bit further up that we're going to pick up. But this bunch worked really well together. We stayed away for the whole race, and this is coming into the final lap now. Now you can see my handlebars there. I'm actually on a giant Propel. It's the first time I'd ever ridden this bike. Prior to that, I'd ridden Fondriasts pretty much all my life. And I've got to say, these giant Propels, they're just pure race bikes. This bike was absolutely awesome. I just loved it. I just could not believe how responsive it felt. Running a Garmin 510 there. I've got a GoPro Hero 3 on the back and a GoPro Hero 4 on the front, and I'm using Premiere Pro to do all the editing. Now, if you had some GoPro footage on your own cameras, you wanted to overlay this data on the cameras, I use a product called Garmin Verb. It's free software. You can download it, and you can basically use that to import your own GoPro footage, overlay some templates and whatnot, and of your power and your speed or whatever you choose to overlay, and then you can export it into Premiere Pro or whatever program you want to use to edit the footage. I'll do a tutorial on that one day. So So you can see here, I've chosen in the overlay of the footage, I've chosen the speed up the top. I've got my heart rate in the centre, and then I've got power. I think the most important thing out of all of this is probably the power and the cadence. The cadence is down the very bottom. You know, you can really, like, if you, for example, if you're in a breakaway solo, you can look down at your power. If you're doing 350 watts and your FTP is 350, then you could probably maintain that all day. But if you're at 450, then you're not going to last very long, you know, on a solo breakaway at that sort of wattage. So you need to back it off. So you can see here, we're coming out the back straight. Everyone's chilled out. I'm not rolling any more turns now because I'm looking back and I can see the main field is way behind us. So they're not going to catch us. So there's no point rolling turns. You know, under the circumstances that there's nobody still up the road. At this point in this bike race, I had no idea that there was one guy away, and that he was probably a minute or two in front of us. He'd escaped in the second lap of the race, and I didn't even know what had happened. So we're coming up the hill here. Probably 12 riders all up in this group. I'm sitting back because I feel pretty confident in a group this size to sprint, and I just want to keep an eye on everyone just to make sure no one's going to attack. I think if someone attacked, I don't know whether I would have gone with it. It's hard to say. It depends on who it is, I suppose. But I'm just sitting back here, and then I move up slightly just to get a little bit closer to the front. And you know, as I've said in many videos before, there's no point coming through the last turn 10th wheel. You want to be in the top 5, but you know, there's that balance. You don't want to be too close to the front. If you're second wheel coming through the last turn and the guy on the front pulls over, then you're the guy that's on the front and everyone's sitting on your wheel, and that's not the ideal position. Obviously. So as I go through this turn, I just slightly move to the right a bit, and which sort of forces him to slot in behind me, which he's done here. So if you ever find yourself in that position, you can use the turns to your advantage. Fourth wheel here, we've got the Inform guys doing a bit of a lead out. Pretty happy with my position coming into this last turn, the second last turn. And then what happens here is we come through the turn, the Total Rush guy in the pink red outfit comes to my right, and what can happen is it can block you in. Okay, so it doesn't matter how fit and strong you're feeling, if you're blocked in, you're blocked in. So I sort of shunted my way out there and managed to break free. And there was a guy on the far left of the road who was pretty much neck and neck with me, and finally got over the line through a bit of a victory salute. Said g'day to him and well done. But as it turned out, there was a guy up the road. He'd broken away since the second lap, and I didn't know. I had no idea. I was snoozing down the back the whole time in the first couple of laps. So pretty embarrassed about that. Threw my arms in the air for second place, but shit happens. Anyway, that's a $25 fine for throwing my arms in the air too. So you can see the final turn, the guy in the Total Rush kit comes to my right and sort of semi-boxes me in, so you have to do what's necessary to get out.
Watch out.
So if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe to the channel. Just remember, don't victory salute at any of these bike races around Melbourne, otherwise you're likely to get fined or suspended. And especially don't victory salute for second place.